done is we're just requesting that the additional layer of oversight around the financial accounts be waived. It's approximately about $1,500 per major centre. They already have an independent chartered accountant who looks at the accounts, and then they go through our ED team and then go to our finance department. So it will just reduce the operating costs per information centre by about $1,500.
So do I have a
I'm happy to move.
Oh, moved Terry, seconded Murray. Any further discussion? There be none. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. So we go to the next item, 4.2. You kept doing it one now. Any points you wanted to raise?
So I just want to say that we're just starting from the project's inception, looking back about 18 months ago. This was and is a housing project, so we had at the start been looking at addressing housing and the need for housing. Throughout the investigation, we've realised that there have been barriers to that housing growth. We know it's about the cost of infrastructure. We know it's about where we put housing. We know it's about a whole range of the investment issues. So what we've done is gathered more evidence about the potential cost of the infrastructure that may be needed for certain areas. We've looked at the economic impact report in terms of what this would mean in terms of the viability of Thames in the long term. And we've also just pulled together a bit more of that data, so that will help inform us when we go out when we're looking at potential plan changes for areas. What we're asking for now is this is pre-consultation to go out to all of our communities and signpost that we have got some options that we want to look at for development that will then inform an RMA procedure when we need to do that in a formal process.
I'm happy to read the resolution.
Seconded.
Seconded, John.
Yeah.
Yes.
My question is, have you approached any actual developers to get their opinions on the land at Tokra and the land at Puri as to what they see?
We have, and that's been part of the early stakeholder engagement. So in the report we do talk about there are developers who have got interest, but again it's the cost of infrastructure. The investment of the infrastructure is a huge barrier. So that. Now
hang on, the normally developer does the infrastructure, that's why I'm asking the question.
That's right, and there are occasions like you look around the country where councils are going into partnerships with developers to do infrastructure projects, because around the country we're all facing a similar problem around the infrastructure not being there, the developers wanting to work on it, but not having the money at the front to then go and pay it off.
So these are small developers?
No, we've been talking to lots of different developers from small to large.
And we're looking at, of course, that housing acceleration fund.
Yes.
So.
Should I just mention we had a meeting with Kaingaroa yesterday. There are several boxes that we seriously tick with this project with Kaingaroa. I don't want to say any more at this point in time, but it was an incredibly positive meeting that we had with them yesterday. So I'm really.
So we need this to leverage.
Well, again, one of Kaingaroa's briefs is to get the housing development project across the line where the standard developer business case doesn't actually stack up. And that's generally speaking provincial New Zealand, because in metropolitan New Zealand it always stacks up, but sometimes in provincial New Zealand it's a little bit harder. So it was a really positive meeting with Kaingaroa yesterday, so I'm sort of feeling quite optimistic on the back of that.
And just elaborating, Kaingaroa is not just about state housing as well, it's different.
It's about all sorts of
housing.
Yeah.
And we're also hoping that the government will look at a way to accelerate being able to rezone areas without all of this cost and time that we've currently had to go through, and that will bring us to whangapata. So if we don't have to spend too much money or time on a spatial plan for whangapata, that would be great, and we'll be looking to any accelerated process to look at housing provision for whangapata, as well as access to the acceleration fund period.
My question is around the risk. Reading the submissions from the regional council, they do not support some of these initiatives in this spatial plan. And I just wonder, where is the risk being mitigated with this? They don't support Pond Street, they don't support what's going out with the whole roads.
We're not talking about any of that.
I'm talking about the spatial plan.
We're only talking about housing here.
So that's not just about housing, it's about the spatial plan. So I need you to understand, is there a risk at stake if they aren't at the table with you discussing this?
So they have been at the table, we have been discussing this. This is a holistic project. We've also been talking with Waka Kotahi and iwi. And at the stage, this is why we're going up for more formal discussions with them and bringing them along with it. If you're looking at the areas that we're suggesting for immediate housing, it's not within any of the flooding inundation.
It's not within the flood.
No, it's not at all.
Right. So Pollen Street was very much, they actually challenged in the submission, so.
So perhaps a bit more reading might be required. Sorry,
I read
Straight.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know I've only speaking rights, but just with the total value side of it, we had $6.5 million in our nice little hat in terms of the infrastructure to develop through to a regional subdivision opportunities. But
Yeah.
my question is, if there are a private landowner up there that has the capability of doing 100 sections or whatever, how ready are we for, spending the money, $6.5 million? It might be nice to have at this stage. In other words, our readiness in terms of, the available opportunity of a private landowner being very keen to develop 100 sections in the Tokyo Valley region.
Well, they would do that if it's rezoned, selling.
No, I just, picking that point up, I think, whether it's in the nice to haves or the must haves, I think is a dilemma. However, the nice to haves is things we can't fund, which to me gives us leverage around.
LTP, we'll leave that
Yeah.
LTP discussion out of it. Moving right along here, just solely on approving this for housing.
Right, okay.
Okay, it's been moved.
So I'm looking at this thing here in the item.
That's my city's report.
Oh, sorry, so I'm looking at item 4.2,
Yes.
Thames and surrounds spatial plan.
Well, it's not actually the spatial plan.
Well, it's not, this is the.
It is there.
Correct. So the question Murray raised, when we spoke to other developers, because we speak to developers too, as some of them, and the biggest developer here, not one. So simply there is already a structure plan in place and things are going along, but there are serious concerns that in our community, all the stuff that's done, and by the way, the infrastructure paid for by the developer, that we are going to run out of capacity to deal with that in terms of water, wastewater, even waste and other things. So I hate to think that until I can be satisfied that we are in front of that, and we're not going to be in front of it, and we're not going to be suggesting a moratorium and those things for something that's already working, while we're going to spend money for something we don't know, and we've been struggling at how we're going to recover it. So
No, that's not correct for Thames housing. Basically, we're talking about Thames housing here. Just rezoning for Thames housing here, Jody, and those matters have been covered.
Are we talking about Thames housing?
We are.
Yeah.
It doesn't say this.
No, I know. So the wording has been misleading. I apologise for that.
well,
But the resolutions are actually quite clear. So,
Yeah, let's see that.
I am accepting.
but even the summary will, yeah, it's a little bit.
What do you want to say?
It is a bit misleading and.
A bit.
We're going to say Thames in there. We can change it to add Thames into the you're talking about 3.2? Do we need to say it's for Thames specifically?
Oh, you already
It's
have.
more about, we're not doing the spatial plan here, we're rezoning some land.
Of course, on the agenda, it's Thames and surrounds spatial plan, and that's.
Okay, so that's all we're doing is rezoning land for housing. That's all it is.
Just for clarity, the spatial plan is continuing, but the spatial plan has got tangled up within the shoreline management planning process.
Yes.
That is going to take way too long to resolve the drastic need we have in Thames for houses. So we have sliced off this portion of work to just rezone some land for housing and get some houses built.
Which we did say in the January meeting when we came back to you with the report about saying this is where we've got to in a stop go because of the spatial planning work is going to dovetail in with short line management plan work because there's so many synergies. And this has always been a housing project, and we know that there is an issue about housing now.
All I'm saying, there's a lot more to be understood because it isn't how we do business. I'm not saying I disagree at all. In fact, I sat here and suggested that we take the 26 million out and go and buy some stuff and do it and treat ourselves as a commercial venture and make some money out of it to reduce the rate impact. But I'm not seeing that discussion. And the thought of council going up Totara, I would be asking, are we talking about high density, medium density, and mixture of both? What is it? Because right now, with the way that's been developed, it ain't going to be a high density opportunity. And who is going to pay, and how do we get our money back if we do it, and guarantee we get our money back? Because all I'm saying is someone's been around development too. If the thing is that good, I tell you, Papa would have been up there 10 years ago and bought that land, and he would have done it the same as he did Whitianga, and did Pawanui, and did Marsden Point. Which, by the way, Marsden's gone to a stop because they can't supply.
I can tell you exactly why he wouldn't do it.
Because can't make
Probably in conflict with what he's doing already up at Whitianga.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
He's doing it for Pawanui, he's doing exactly the same
Anyway,
thing.
we're not discussing Mr. Hopper's business.
Anyhow.
There is a motion on the table, any further discussion, Terry?
Yeah. So now I understand what you're trying to do. So just to explain a little bit, I know it's a council infrastructure and they're going to put it in front. Is that an agreement with the developer to share that cost, or are you going to put the infrastructure up front? Then look for the developer.
Not there yet. All we're doing is zoning.
Plan change for rezoning.
They're talking about a mixture of discussions with the developer.
So through the chair.
Nothing to do with just a plan change for rezoning.
It's
Just
going to be
part of
zoning.
discussion.
We're talking about the future, why you're doing it.
That could be anything.
You've got to get the rezoning done first, then have the discussion.
Yeah. Okay, I should put the resolution on those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried, thank you. Right, moving on to the next one, we have land disposal fees, 198.
John?
Does it need? Okay, so I think we'll just carry on. Do I have a mover? No, Ed, run a mover.
Just to get on table for discussion.
I can have a mover in a second, we can discuss it.
Yeah, move it.
Martin. So you move, I'm moved John, seconded Martin. Right, discussion.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, this opens the door to further work about potentiality, etc. It doesn't commit us to anything other than giving the CEO and his team authority to keep moving. This is another example of not nice Grimfields, but a whole lot of complexity that needs to be addressed. But what Ngāti Maru are saying is we're interested in working with you to go further with this. Is that a summary that makes sense?
They approached us with a proposal, which was great. First proposal we've ever had. Martin.
So on the location plan on page 203, generally that entire area with the blue line around it, that's entirely council-owned reserve?
Yeah.
Right, and it's currently zoned as just
Part of it would be zoned reserve, I'm not sure if it's all reserve, but whatever, they want the reserve status removed to enable the use of the whole area cleanly.
So, John?
My biggest concern, and you guys, you tend to councillors will know better than me, is the reliance of the school on that land. They actually have a very small parcel of land without that reserve.
And that's where,
They're a leasing.
They are, I know they're only a leasing. I realise they haven't been
But that's
until 2036 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I just have some reservations about that school losing that much ground. Some of it maybe, but especially area C.
And that's to me is part of what we're delegating to do further work on.
Yeah.
Does this make sense or not? And those are the kind of, I'm sure that many more little fishhooks like the size of it. What happens?
So what can happen is if you remove the reserve status, the developers may say to the school, I will send you Lisbon as we develop the rest. Which is or they might even do a shared usage because it's children's space.
So
And
the school's got a
it's
lease.
very flat.
Who's got the school got a lease with?
Us.
That's our land.
Yeah.
So it's,
Land disposal.
sell the land to them and then they sell the land to the school. Seems a bit odd.
Okay, Martin?
Yeah, and just, the school often uses the Thames racecourse for, things like cross country and that sort of thing. So, they very seldom get across into that area A or B.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see them on C, but,
Okay, just raise it.
Okay, any other discussion? Sorry, John, all there being none, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes, carried. Thank you very much.
Well done, John.
Excellent work, fantastic work. Right, Chief Executive Report, page 204.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll take the report as read, but just a couple of highlights from my perspective for clarity. The executive summary in the financial slides show that we have a surplus of 5.4 million, but obviously at the last council meeting we approved a budget revision indicating a year-end position of about £1 million. I still believe that to be about the case. We didn't change the figures in relation to the revision. The capital expenditure summary shows that expenditure is behind by about 3.9 million. We believe, in light of the works that we've brought forward today, that we will achieve between 80 and 85% completion of that capital programme. We're progressing very well in that regard. The Coping Marine Business Precinct, again, another project that's progressing very well. We're now at the fast track consenting stage, so that's really exciting news. So we're just waiting for the expert panel to give their recommendations. And if everything sort of heads in the right direction, we hope to be starting construction by back end of July or August. Is it July, August construction start? August, yeah. That's good. So that's really positive news. And I was going to point out the Thames Thames housing project and the meeting that we had with Claymore, but I mentioned it in 2 minutes before. So from my perspective, that's one of the most positive government interactions I've had for a very long time with Claymore yesterday. So with their renewed focus, not just in state housing, but also in property more generally, I think that's a really good review of a government department that will produce some significant benefits for New Zealanders going forward. So I applaud them for that, because it's nice when you hear those positive interactions with government departments. So other than that, it's business as usual. The water meters project is progressing. I think we're just about to start actually putting meters in the ground. Video now.
Doing the enabling work at this stage, so a few more months of enabling work, locate, finding where all the crazy connections are, can be metered.
Yeah.
So, and again, just one apology, we got the wrong report, we got the Infometrics proposal document put in this report rather than the actual report. So the peak population study was referred to at the back of my report. It just gives a summary of where we were this summer. Interesting to, that's good, yeah, thank you. It's interesting to note that we were sort of quite a bit down on many years gone by. So, it's an interesting read, that the population, that peak population.
It may well be that the Hangablog activity owners came down throughout the year and had quite a bit of time here earlier. That could come to What we're just on that point, I was going to ask you, we talk communications and we talk population, and I know I've said this before, but approximately 50% of the total owners of property in Thames Coromandel are absentee. And I've had a number say to me, I'm having difficulty trying to get as an actually only to get my vote done. I didn't find that bad, but a couple had said that to me. Is there any way we are sending rates demands out at some stage?
Yes, one out.
When's the next one coming?
About August,
September.
Well, can we just let the people know the site to go on, how you can actually, if you want to, record and get your one vote, because there's unique places in the country like Tupper, which you knew, and Queenstown and other places, where the law changed in 1990, you used to be able to vote wherever you owned property, but then it's changed, and a lot of people would like to be a bit more enfranchised, and they didn't know they couldn't vote. And when it came to the last elections, they just looked at it as a right, and then they discovered. So I just think communication to the people out there is just a good thing to do next time.
It's been communicated every other year, I would have thought. I mean, we can put out as much as we like, but if people don't pick it up,
Well,
you can.
the other thing is, do you in the rates report send? Surely you can say to people like on such and such. Will you actually send out what the form is, and then you'll get people this time, because a lot of people glance and just look at what the amount is. And if you see a log out.
No, we can direct them to where they can fill out the form online, or print it off and fill it out themselves in hard copy. But if we add an extra, however many pages there are of the actual form.
Well, then you do the front page.
Well, there's a
Go on
cost to that,
site,
Gary.
because that's going to get their attention. If they see the first page,
No, it's not guaranteed.
well, it's going to be more guaranteed than just looking at the log on.
If they subscribe to council's email address, we could actually put it online so that they can actually get the information direct.
Well, all I'm just raising, people can think about in communication. What's the best way out there to get the absentee owners to feel enfranchised? That's all. They only get one
Best
vote.
way is if they subscribe to our email, because we can't do it for them.
Well, I don't know how we tell them that, but you've got communications that.
Do you tell them that?
No.
We constantly try to go.
Okay, so I'm just mentioning it again, because it's not sort of getting through to a lot of people who talk to me saying, oh, what do I do? And I've forgotten how to do it anyway.
Thank you.
Good news.
I think, well, look, it is good news, yeah.
Yeah, I'm here to move the report. Yeah.
Second.
Second, John. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to check something. So in the first page 204 on the agenda, fourth paragraph down, it says program is on track for 80 to 85% completion by year end. So that's year end as in the end of June.
Yeah.
Right. So bearing in mind the fact that we had that pandemic thing, is the 80 to 85 actually a really, really good result?
Yes.
Considering that?
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Well, again, for the last 5 years, we've achieved 80 to 85% on our capital programs, which is pretty remarkable. I think 1 year we touched into the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, financially, it's quite challenging, particularly when you've reduced your reserves. So, and we've had some discussions in this chamber about that aspect, but, from a getting things done perspective, it's very, very good news. My hat goes off to the team of project managers that we have, because that delivery is outstanding, really. It's up there with the best local governments.
The only danger is you've now set that bar and now.
If you go back about 15 years, 42, 43 was the average.
Yeah. 35,
And that's what a big slush fund around here.
Jolly good.
Okay, thank you.
No, that's good.
So
Thank
all
you.
those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. Very good news story. Right, so we're now moving around for vendors reports. Murray?
I think everything's going very well in our town. Been a lot of people around lately. The town is going very, very well.
School holidays.
Amazing. School holidays, yeah, quite amazing.
Events, Anzac.
Yeah, it's been very, very good. So, Anzac Day was huge. And the service was huge, so I get a good vibe in our town. On another note, can I ask for leave, please, your worship, on Friday, because I'm going to a wedding. And on the 2nd of June, I've got a court mediation I've got to go to. So if I can ask for leave on those 2 days.
If it's fine. Do you mean say I have the privilege of granting you that?
I'll ask for I'll do it formally and then because the hearings and deliberations and they are formal statements, so I don't know the formal lead.
And I think it's lovely that the procedural nature of that formality is really appreciated, so thank you. Tony?
Well, not too much apart from the fact that I came over for the presentation here on the TCDC resilience system presentation, which is more about our infrastructure. So for those who dialed on, hope you got the same benefit I got by being here. Very, very good. And very satisfying to know that we've got a team that is well over a lot of this stuff and pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's very good work that's been done, so
appreciate what you've done. It's been massive actually. Sally?
Just wanted to acknowledge that I represented Sandra and the council when the Queen of the Cook Islands came to honour one of their people who was buried up in Shortland Street. Was one of the most amazing interactions between the Cooks and Ngāti Maru. Very moving. And then we hosted the cup of tea down at the bite, and so it was special. Anzac was special. I'm going to zoom into Whitianga tomorrow as opposed to going there.
Yep.
But I'm working online, and Mary Street. People are using. I'm getting more positive feedback about the space than negative now. People haven't talked to me about car parks or getting to the supermarket for a few weeks. Plus, with turning it around, it's made an enormous difference. So, yeah, going well.
Can I just say, thanks Sally for attending that particular memorial service with the Queen from
Cook Islands. Yeah,
that was really special. The feedback I've had from all of those that were there is that it was an incredibly special event, and they were very, very appreciative. So we were quite privileged to have you come, and Ngāti Maru attended. There are quite a few Ngāti Maru dignitaries, and so yeah, that was an exceptional thing for us to have occurred. So very appreciated. So thank you, Sally. Appreciate that.
He changed his name to get into the army, and so there was other Alfred Napo there wanting to know who was this fella that had taken their name. So there was a really amazing interchange working out. So he was too young or something, and so he changed his name to get in.
certainly rather than being.
Amazing. Gary?
Yes, well, it's been a time for me to reflect on a number of matters. I've had 51 years as a lawyer, and I spent a lot of time dealing with legal opinions and all that goes on. And I have to say that I didn't imagine such legal opinions would be having such an effect upon what happens in the council. And I will say, talking about that to the excluded public situation, I have had a lot of contact from people who are just beside themselves about what's happening with the skate park, and I will refer to that in the excluded public as well. I'd just like to say I need to be excused unless some major things happened and a few people plead guilty. I have a murder trial starting on the 24th of May with 4 accused, and I would have to be excused from the orphan risk meeting on the 26th, and I'll just go over. It's a 3-week trial. It may fall short, I hear, that something may be happening with police, but it's certainly not my person. So anyhow, so to let you know that that was something that was set up a long time ago, and I've got a trial for next year that was set 18 months ago. So
I appreciate that.
You just can't do much about it.
Thank you, Gary. Martin?
Yes, so several events have been to, so we talked about Anzac, the winter dawn service, and then Rob and I later read from behalf of the Thames Community Board. And yeah, just sort of seeing people when those services finished, spilling over into Mary Street, and then again when the steam pump the day before just seeing that space being used. There was a couple doing some formal dancing with a little crowd of people. It was, there was just a really good vibe. And again, like Sally, there's a lot more people now, I think, that are reflecting on it, and the initial sort of all the excitement seems to die down as far as that goes. And we also was lucky enough to come along to Gwyneth Wright's what's that word? I can never say. Investiture. And that was extremely special, and people afterwards, Sandra she wasn't sure if she was breaking protocol by doing this, but allowed people in the audience who was family and friends to actually say some words about Gwyneth, and people here were very grateful that you've done that, and it just turned into a very special, very moving event. And they said, well, we wouldn't have got that if we had done it up in Auckland, because it just would have been more of a production line. There was a lot of very happy people that day, and it was quite something maybe we should encourage more.
It was a singular event for the district on 2 occasions.
Yeah.
That was Joe Williams, in QBE, is it Queen's Service? No, QSM. Did I get a Queen's Service now? What was his? He had an investiture as well.
I thought his was a
which
nice
sells
one.
him. Sir Joe Williams. I mean, so Gwyneth Wright, becoming QSM, was another significant investiture, both occurring within the district. So you're absolutely right, totally endorse that, Martin. Very exceptional occurrence for the district. Is there anything else you wanted to add? And thank you for the heads up about the sound system forensic.
Yeah. Well, these people have said quite a lot, but I also wanted to acknowledge we had some really big events, because we had steampunk, but also the beach hop came here for a day.
Yeah.
And it was really lovely to see the town really swimming on both of those days, and spoke to a number of people in shops on the day and afterwards, and they all seemed very pleased that there were lots of people around, and it was just really nice to see the town busy and to see people happy. So.
Did you see the Kirsten sent me on the front cover of the magazine to everybody?
Yeah.
Did you see
that? Great. And wasn't the weather great for both days? Whoever organised that?
It was just the most wonderful day.
Yeah, no, pretty sweet up in Coromandel Centre. No majors, nothing to talk about. Just one thing I will mention though is that we're lucky with the community board up there. They're very unified and they swing behind council 100%. So I feel quite lucky to have that group of people up there, and long may that last.
Excellent. Thank you. Kerry.
Just been away for a few weeks, but Anzac Day at Whangatā was a huge day. Huge crowd, biggest I've seen for a long time, that you see at the Dawn Parade. That's good. We came home to some reading while over here. It's good to see the amount of submissions that came through. Lots of comments I've had about the lack of commentary around the sale of 101 Lindsay Road, which is a bit disappointing, and no comments box. So, and there was a few mistakes, which in the document, but I thought it read clear. The rest of it was very good, easy document to follow, but disappointing to see those lack of comments, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. And for my part, I'm only going to mention one incident which is actually pretty upsetting, really. Ian McNabb, who's the chair of the group as governance oversight of the Sugarloaf, combined with Government Council and Coromandel Farmers Association, just passed away.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I know.
This what like
This morning.
shit.
So that's an incredibly sad, honestly. We were only just about a couple of weeks ago, and suddenly we were told about 3 or 4 days ago that he wasn't well, and now we're being told he's passed away.
Yeah, obviously.
Well, we sent something from the account. I was sick of the accounts. We sent something to the family.
I'll send the our condolences, but this is, it's a bit shocking, really.
It is.
In the true sense of the word shock. Okay, so, I'll take your words, Sally, I'll take it under advisement. We just
You know, I had a lot of confidence
just
in him. He was the right man for the job. He was a very nice man, and he's going to be very difficult to fill those shoes.
Hugely talented,
Mm.
hugely talented and experienced.
Okay.
So we're, okay, I'll move on. Now, public excluded, can we please go? Moved and seconded for the members' report. Thank you, Robin. Moved, Robin. Seconded, Martin. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Right now, do I have a mover for public excluded?
Yeah.
Moved, Murray. Seconded, John. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. We just have to